What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Victoria and in today's video we'll be drafting the pattern for a blazer jacket. So to begin, I'll be coming down from the top end of my pattern paper like always to create my shoulder line. I'll go ahead to square out that point like so, and from there I'll be taking all my vertical measurements. And I'll be starting with my shoulder to bust measurement at 11 inches, and then I'll mark my shoulder to waist measurement at 17 inches. And next will be the full length of the jacket. I'll be marking these same 3 points on the other side of my pattern paper before going in with my ruler to square these points out. So the first line is my bust line and I just labeled that. And next we have the waistline and then the full length. I'll also go ahead to label the shoulder line and then move on to create my neckline and shoulder slope. So I'm starting with the back pattern. So this is me creating the back neckline and I'm using 3 inches for my neck width and 1.5 inches for my neck depth. I'll go ahead to connect the 2 points together using my French curve and then indicate the center back. Next, I'm moving on to create my shoulder slope. So first, I'm marking half of my across shoulder measurement along the shoulder line, and from that point, I'll be going down by 1 inch. Then I'll go in with my ruler to connect that point to meet the neckline like so. So after that, I'll be creating my upper chest line by coming up from the bust line by 2 inches. You can determine your upper chest line by dividing your bust circumference by 6 plus 1.5 and marking that point downwards from the shoulder slope. So now that I've created my chest line, I'll be connecting the end of my shoulder slope to meet that line. So first I measured 8 inches along the chest line just to make sure it's straight. And now I'll be connecting the shoulder slope downwards to meet that point. Then along the chest line, I'll be marking a quarter of my bust circumference away from the center back. This is to help me create my armhole. Then along that vertical line, I'll be marking the midpoint. After which, I'll be going in with my French curve to connect the 2 points together to create my back armhole. Once that's done, it's time to create the dart. And I'll begin by marking half of my bust span measurement plus half an inch along all the horizontal lines. So my bust span measurement is 8 inches, half of that is 4, and to that I'll be adding 0.5 allowance. So I'm marking 4.5 inches all the way to the end. And when I'm done marking, I'll go in with my ruler to connect all the points together in a straight line. And then along the waistline, I'm marking half an inch on both sides of that line. I'll also be coming down from the upper chest line by 1 inch, and from the hem, I'll be coming up by 2 inches. I'll go ahead and connect all these points that I just marked using my ruler in the form of a triangle to create the back darts. And once that's done, it's time to mark a quarter of my horizontal measurements along these lines. Remember, on the chest line, I already marked a quarter of my bust circumference, so I'm just going to be adding half an inch for ease. And then along the waistline, I'm marking a quarter of my waist circumference plus the 1 inch that will be taken in for the dart. And then moving over to the hem, I'll simply be marking a quarter of my hip circumference. After marking, I'll be connecting all the points together. So I'm connecting the upper chest line to the waistline and then the waistline to the hemline. I'll also be going in with my French curve to smoothing out any sharp edges. And from the hemline along the side, I'll be coming up by 1 inch. Then I'm going to blend that point back into the hemline with my ruler like so. I'll also be adding a side seam allowance of 1 inch. That will be the only allowance I'll be adding to this pattern, and when I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern. So I'm not fully done with the back pattern, but I want to use this to create the front, so I'll be stopping here for now. So using the back pattern, I've drafted out the front and I transferred all my horizontal lines as well. But there are a few differences between the front and the back pattern. The first being that my center front did not begin from the end of my pattern paper. I came in by 4.5 inches to allow me create the lapel. I also came down by 6 inches before creating the shoulder line to enable me create the collar. Another difference is in the neck depth. For the back I used 1.5, while for the front I used 3 inches for the neck depth. Also, the front armhole is deeper than the back. You already know how this is done from drafting a basic bodice, but if you don't know how to do that, I have a tutorial on how to draft a basic bodice block. Also, the dart for the front pattern starts 1 inch below the bust line instead of the upper chest line like we did for the back. So yeah, apart from the darts, the armhole, the neckline, every other measurement stays the same. So to start working on the front pattern, I'll be coming out from the center front by 1 inch. So this is where the button is going to sit at the front if you decide to have a button. So I'll go ahead and connect that point all the way down and then decide where I want the break point to be. For me, I want mine to stop directly on my waistline, but you can choose to go up from the waistline by 1 inch. It's up to you. So I'm just extending the waistline like so. And then I'll be connecting that point directly to the neck width. So I'm just going in with my ruler. You can see how I'm placing it. And then I'm just going to connect that point straight all the way to the neckline. I'm going in again with the black marker pen so you can clearly see the line. Next, I'll be connecting the waistline in a curve to meet the hemline. Now this is optional. You can choose to leave it straight if you want, but I'm just going to be curving it until it meets that point on the hemline. So I'll be going in with my French curve. I'm just going to place it properly and then curve that point to meet the waistline. You can do this with your free hand. You don't necessarily have to use a French curve or a ruler. Okay, so this is how it's looking. Now I'll be moving on to create the collar, and the first thing I'll do is to measure the back neckline. So after measuring the back neckline, I got 3.5 inches. So now I'm going to be extending this line right here by 3.5 inches. You can see the way I'm measuring. I'm making sure it's going in the same direction, and then I'll just go in with my ruler to connect that point back into the line. So after that, I'll be coming out from that line by 0.5 inch. This is just to help the collar sit perfectly on the neck. As you can see, I'm marking the 0.5 inch away from the neckline. Then I'll go in with my ruler to connect that point back to the neck width. So that first line is no longer needed. I just cancelled it. And now it's time to determine how wide I want the collar to be, and I'll be going for 3.5 inches. You can even use 3 inches if you want. And you can see that I'm not measuring it straight. It's almost sort of slanted like the shoulder slants. So now I'm just going to be extending the neckline. I forgot to do that earlier. And along the neckline, I'll be coming out by 1 inch. This will determine how wide my lapel will be. So I'm going in again to connect it back into the neckline. And then I'll be connecting that point to meet the break point at the waistline. So I'm just going in with my ruler to connect it in a straight line. And you can see that it's slowly coming together. So this is how wide the lapel will be. That means this line will no longer be needed. I'm just going to cancel that. And then from this line right here, I'll be coming up by 0.5 inch. This will be the separation between the lapel and the collar, and then I'll go in with my ruler to connect that point back to the neckline. And to finish off the collar, I'll be going in with my French curve to connect the 2 points together like so. Now you can choose to leave the pattern as it is, but I'll be going for a princess dart. So what I'll be doing is to connect the dart to the shoulder slope. So first I'm going to measure the shoulder slope and find the midpoint. And then I'm going to connect that point to meet the bust span measurement on the bust line. I'm just going in with my ruler to connect the 2 points together like so, and that's it. I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern. Connecting the dart to the shoulder line is completely optional. You can choose to leave the dart as it was before. The only allowance I have for this pattern is the side seam allowance. I'll be adding seam allowance to the rest of the pattern when cutting it onto fabric. So I'm done cutting out the front. This is what it looks like, and this is how it's going to sit when I'm done sewing. So now go ahead and open up the dart. I'm just cutting along the lines just like this, and when I'm all done, I'm going to label the other piece as the side front. So that's it for the front. I'm going to set this aside and move on to the back. So because there's a shoulder dart for the front pattern, there's going to be a shoulder dart for the back pattern as well. So I just marked the midpoint of the shoulder slope and I'm connecting it to meet the back dart. And then along the waistline, I'll be coming in from the center back by 1/2 inch. This is just to reduce bulk along the center back. As you know, our backs are not straight. So I'll be connecting that point to the hem and also blending it towards the neckline. And that will become my new center back. So now I'm all done. I'll go ahead and cut open the darts and also trim out the excess along the center back. So the second piece is going to be my side back, and of course I'll be cutting out 2 separate pieces using this pattern. Meanwhile, the collar will be cut on a fold. So guys, this is the end of this tutorial. I hope you found this helpful. The sewing tutorial will be coming up shortly, maybe not immediately after this one, but it will be coming up shortly. So stay tuned, give this video a thumbs up, also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.